All right, so this is the first video on perfect competition, and we will go through it as a PowerPoint. These include modules 58, 59, and 60. So there are three pretty big chunks that we have to deal with. All right, perfect competition. Well, I guess I should start off by saying there are actually four different competition structures. There's perfect competition on one side of the spectrum. There is monopoly on the opposite side of the spectrum. Then there is monopolistic competition, which leans more toward the perfect competition but has monopoly characteristics. And then there's oligopoly, which leans toward the monopoly side of the scale with really actually hardly any perfect competition characteristics. So we start off with a perfectly competitive industry. All right. Certain assumptions. Memorize these, guys. This is an extremely important list of characteristics. There are many firms. Each firm has an identical product. They're also known as perfect substitutes. You can't tell one from another. You take an ear of corn from Bob's farm down the road, and you compare that ear of corn with Fred's farm in Ohio, and the two ears of corn are identical. There are no entry and exit restrictions, which means firms can enter the market or shut down and leave the market without any kind of barrier. There are no legal barriers. There's no economy of scale kind of barriers. They can come and go as they wish. We also realize that new firms into the market versus old, long-lasting firms, there are no advantages over each other. And we also, number 4 is really important. The seller and the buyer are informed about price. The seller knows what everybody is charging, what all the producers are charging, and the buyer knows what the market is doing, what other sellers are doing. So they're both very well informed. These assumptions arise when the market demand is large relative to the output of a single producer. So we need to keep in mind that Bob's little farm down the road is a very, very, very small percent of the entire market of that particular product. So there could be thousands and thousands of corn farmers. Bob's farm is only one very, very small percent. There are no economies of scale present, and all products are of the same quality. Specifically, the buyers see no distinction between them. Examples of these kinds of things, we have the wheat industry, fishing, manufacturing of things such as styrofoam paper cups, styrofoam cups, plastic shopping bags, lawn service. You can see the list here. These are all items that are perfect substitutes of one another, and wheat, perfect substitute for other wheat, and so on. And there are many, many firms that provide these products. So getting into analysis, in the short run, what we're going to try to do is figure out the decision making of the firm itself. What is the decision making that the firm can make? Can they set price? Can they set quantity? What can they and can they not do? We have to be aware of short run and long run analysis. In the short run, a firm decides its quantity level. It cannot dictate price. More on that on the next screen. All it can decide is what quantity to produce. So if Bob's farm could actually, if they use every square inch and they maximize that farm, they could produce, say, 1,000 bushels of corn from that farm. Well, Bob doesn't necessarily want to produce 1,000 bushels on that farm. He may not maximize those number of bushels. Why not? Well, it depends upon his cost of production. It depends upon the demand curve and what the market is doing. There are a lot of factors. Remember, Bob wants to maximize profit, MR equals MC. So even though he could grow 1,000 bushels of corn, he may not choose to do that. So in the short run, Bob has to decide what quantity to produce that will result in profit maximization. In the long run, Bob has to decide to stay in business or to shut down. We will discuss later what will drive that long run choice. Keep in mind that Bob will price his corn to sell. He will price his corn according to the market. He does not set price. He's going to be a price taker. All the perfectly competitive firm can do is decide quantity. They have no power over price. That's why they are called price takers. The reason why these industries are price takers is because there are so many producers that increasing, if Bob increases his price tag 5 cents higher than Fred's farm, well, buyers are well informed of prices, and what buyers are going to do is stop buying Bob's corn. They're going to buy Fred's corn. So Bob cannot raise his price above what all the other firms are setting their price at, or the market price. Bob is subjected to market dictates. He's got to charge what the market charges. Bob also realizes that he could grow, or he could sell every single ear of corn he grows at the market price. So it makes no sense to lower his price. There is no customer to steal. If Bob could grow 1,000 bushels of corn maximum, he knows he could sell all 1,000 bushels at the market price. So to lower his price below that market price makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Therefore, perfectly competitive firms are price takers. They must take the price dictated by the market. All right, quick comment on revenue. Since we are going to be dealing with profit maximization, we definitely have to take into consideration revenue, not just costs. Total costs, or total revenue minus total cost, is profit. So the cost revenue comparison is extremely important. We need to understand that the price is determined by the market supply and demand. All of the suppliers, all thousands of suppliers of corn that exist, and all of the buyers, the millions and millions of people who buy corn. So we're looking at the entire market in the market graph, and it's going to look like your old-fashioned supply and demand curve. Now, the firm will have a different graph. Bob's firm's graph is going to look very different than the market. We're not dealing with all suppliers and all buyers. We're only dealing with Bob as a single supplier and his buyers. So what we want to do is assess what Bob's marginal revenue will be. And of course, we want to assess what Bob's marginal cost will be, because MR equals MC is profit max. Bob is a firm that is seeking profit motive. It's all connected. So when we look at Bob's graph, the firm graph, marginal revenue is going to be the price dictated by the market side. We're going to create what are called side-by-side graphs, where on the left side you'll have the supply demand of the market, and on the right side you're going to see the individual firm's graph, and it'll look very different. You'll see that here in just a bit. We have to understand that the firm, Bob's Farm, has a perfectly elastic marginal revenue curve, which means it's horizontal, because it's one price for all quantities that Bob can produce. We're also going to realize, since the price tag Bob sets, dictated by the market because he's a price taker, is also going to serve as Bob's demand curve. That's the price that the buyers will buy from Bob. Maximizing profit, we do realize that there are two different ways of calculating profit max. Use total revenue and total cost, or we use marginal analysis. The one we're going to use the most, of course, is marginal analysis. So, quick review. We've already done the total revenue and total cost. So, quick review of those. Total revenue and total cost curves. We see what economic profit is. By the way, anytime we mention profit, we're dealing with economic profit, not accounting. So if we take a look at the TR and TC graph, the greatest vertical distance between TR and TC is profit max. So you can pause this real quick and just kind of take a look at this graph and see what I'm talking about. Okay, this is another way of showing it. Again, we did this in class. If you actually crunch the numbers, TR minus TC, and you get the profit levels and you graph the profit levels, the peak of this, of course, is profit max. All right, what we're really going to do, however, we are going to deal with marginal analysis. We're going to use the MR equals MC rule. So what we're going to do, I'm going to skip ahead and then come back to this. We're going to put the two graphs side by side. So what we see here is this is the market side. So the supply curve that you see here, that supply curve reflects all of the producers of this particular product. This is everybody, all the corn farmers. The demand are all the buyers. Now, typically, you're not going to see the supply curve cut over and go down like this. This reflects the shutdown condition of the various firms. Ignore that for now. Please ignore that for now. That's something we're going to do later. In your mind, just picture this demand curve and a traditional supply curve. We have an equilibrium quantity and an equilibrium price dictated by the industry or the market. I've been calling it the market. So we have equilibrium price and quantity. Take the equilibrium price set by the entire market and bring it over to the curve on the right. This graph is Bob's farm. This is the individual firm. Again, ignore the way that the MC curve is shaped here. I want you to picture the typical tail on the MC that we've been studying. Later, we'll talk about why this shape is what it is. Okay, so notice that the marginal revenue of the individual firm is taken from the market side. That's because the firm is, in fact, a price taker. So the MR, the perfectly elastic MR curve, is also the individual firm, Bob's farm in this case, the individual firm's demand curve. So it's one price for every quantity that Bob can grow his corn, every quantity that the firm can produce. We have your typical marginal cost curve. Add the tail on it like we've been studying and ignore the shape. MC also will be the supply. Specifically, in this case, it's Bob's supply, the individual firm supply. However, we're looking at the cost side because we're doing MR equals MC. So what does Bob do? He charges a dollar amount, that is his marginal revenue, boom, over here at price, and he sets a quantity where MR equals MC. So his quantity will be Q1, that is profit max. If Bob produces a quantity less than that, he's not producing maximum profit. If he produces a quantity higher than that, that is not profit maximizing. He's losing profit. This MR equals MC is his maximum profit. That's why he is in business. Notice I put the ATC curve. So you know, and we'll do this later in more detail, the ATC is basically going to be Bob's average cost of production. I mean, that's, this quantity, that's his average cost of production. So what we have here is a price that equals the ATC at the profit max. This is going to be Bob's break even, zero profit. The interaction between the ATC and the quantity and price set is going to set our profit levels. We'll deal with that in a different video. So this is what your side-by-side graph is going to look like. Back to this. MR equals MC rule, market graph next to the firm graph, and so on and so on and so on. All right. So that's it for this video. This is your introduction. The next video, we're going to take a look at the analysis of the four profit conditions: zero profit, positive profit, negative profit, and shutdown. Zero profit and shutdown are both long run. Positive and negative profit can only exist in the short run. And that connects to the entry exit. No barriers to entry and exit. More on that later.